Hold still. We are trying to separate you.
Y'all,
do not
let
pull.
me tell you something. My name is Paulina. And honey, what I'm about to share with you is gonna shake you to your core. This story ain't just about betrayal. It's about survival, dignity, and the kind of revenge that leaves folks talking for years. So grab your tea, settle in, and let me tell you how I went from being the perfect wife to becoming the woman who made headlines across Memphis when the paramedics had to pull my cheating husband and his mistress apart, literally stuck together like two pieces of paper with Elmer's glue. But before I get to that part where I swapped his precious oil with glue and watched karma work its magic, I want you to do me a very quick favor. Hit that subscribe button, like this video, and I'd like to know where you're watching me from in the comments. Simply type your country in the comments section, as I'm excited to see how far my story can really reach. I hope you'll do that for me. Let me start from the beginning, because honey, this story is layered like my mama's 7-layer cake, and every layer matters. I met Tyrone at a church barbecue in 2003. Lord, that man was fine. 6'2", smooth chocolate skin, smile that could light up the whole sanctuary. He worked in construction then, always talking about his big dreams, how he was gonna build houses, start his own company, make something of himself. And me? Well, I was 22, fresh out of college with a business degree, working at a medical billing company downtown. My parents, Deacon Ernest and First Lady Ruby Jenkins, had made sure I was educated and independent before I even thought about marriage. Paulina, my mama used to say, stirring her famous cornbread batter, you make sure you can take care of yourself before you let any man take care of you. Independence is the foundation of respect. My daddy was even more direct. Baby girl, I ain't raising you to be nobody's burden. You get your education, get your job, get your own money. Then if a man comes along who deserves you, fine. But you don't need him. You want him. There's a difference. And they weren't playing either. Before I could even get serious with anybody, Daddy made sure I had my own savings account, my own car paid off, and connections at 3 different companies in case I needed to switch jobs. Mama even helped me start a small catering business on weekends, teaching me her recipes and business sense. They wanted to make sure their daughter would never have to stay in a situation because she couldn't afford to leave. Smart parents, y'all. Real smart. But love makes you do foolish things sometimes. Tyrone courted me proper, I'll give him that. Church every Sunday, holding hands during prayer, meeting my parents with respect. He talked about our future like it was already written in gold. Paulina, you and me, we gonna build something beautiful together. I'm gonna take care of you like the queen you are. And honey, I believed every word. We got engaged after a year and a half. Big church wedding in 2005. White dress, 5 bridesmaids, reception at the community center. Mama made sure everything was perfect, and Daddy walked me down that aisle with tears in his eyes. I felt like I was floating on clouds, ready to start this beautiful life with my husband. But you know what they say, the honeymoon don't last forever. 3 months after we got married, Tyrone lost his construction job. It's temporary, baby, he said, sitting on the couch in his undershirt and basketball shorts. The company's just going through some changes. I'll find something else real quick. Real quick turned into 6 months. 6 months of me getting up at 6 a.m. to go to work while he slept until noon. 6 months of me coming home to find him on the couch, playing video games or watching TV. 6 months of me asking, baby, did you fill out any applications today? And getting attitude in return. Paulina, stop pressuring me. I'm handling my business. A man needs to find the right opportunity, not just take any old job. The right opportunity. Child, please. Meanwhile, the bills weren't waiting for his right opportunity. Rent was due. Electric company didn't care about his feelings. Grocery store wasn't running a special for unemployed husbands with wounded pride. So I stepped up. What else was I gonna do? I started working overtime at the medical billing company, picked up extra shifts on weekends, started doing more catering jobs with mama. And you know what I didn't complain? That's what wives do, right? We hold it down when our husbands are struggling. That's what I was taught, what I believed in my heart. But here's the thing that started eating at me. It wasn't just the money. It was the way he started treating my efforts like they were nothing. Like the fact that I was keeping us afloat wasn't worth acknowledging. One day, I came home from pulling a 12-hour shift. We had a big project at work and I had volunteered to stay late to earn the overtime. I walked into our apartment exhausted, feet hurting, ready to just sit down and maybe order some takeout since I was too tired to cook. Tyrone was on the couch with his boys Damon and Curtis, eating the leftover fried chicken I'd made the night before, empty beer bottles on my coffee table. "Hey baby," he said without looking up from the basketball game. "We're out of beer. Can you grab some from the store?" I just stood there for a moment, still in my work clothes, purse heavy on my shoulder, looking at these grown men who've been lounging in my apartment all day while I was out working. "Tyrone, I'm tired," I said quietly. "Aw, come on, baby. It's just a quick run to the store. You know how it is when the boys come over." His boys, in my apartment, eating my food, drinking my beer, while I worked to pay for it. But I went to the store. You know why? Because I loved him. Because I believed that marriage meant sacrifice. Because my mama always said, a good woman supports her man even when he's down. What I didn't understand then was the difference between supporting a man who's down and enabling a man who's comfortable being down. Things got worse when we started trying to have children. After about a year of marriage, we figured it was time to start our family. Tyrone was excited about the idea of being a daddy, and I was ready to be a mama. But months passed, then more months, and nothing happened. "Maybe we should see a doctor," I suggested after we'd been trying for over a year. "Ain't nothing wrong with me," he said, getting that defensive tone in his voice. "Sometimes these things just take time." But I was worried. I made an appointment with my gynecologist, Dr. Patricia Williams, a Black woman doctor who'd been recommended by my mama's friend. She ran all kinds of tests on me, and everything came back normal. "Mrs. Johnson," she said, sitting across from me in her office, "there's nothing wrong with your reproductive system. Sometimes fertility issues involve both partners. Has your husband been tested?" When I brought this up to Tyrone, he got angry. "You trying to say I'm not man enough to get my wife pregnant?" "Baby, that's not what I'm saying at all. The doctor just said," "I don't care what that doctor said. There ain't nothing wrong with me." But I persisted. Finally, after months of gentle pressure and one particularly emotional conversation where I broke down crying, he agreed to get tested. The results came back clear as day. Tyrone had a low sperm count and mobility issues. Treatable, but definitely the reason we weren't getting pregnant. And you know what he said when the doctor explained this to us? "This information doesn't leave this room." Not, "Okay, let's figure out how to fix this." Not, "Thank you for pushing me to get tested, baby." Just, "This doesn't leave this room." Because heaven forbid his family or his boys found out that their precious Tyrone had fertility issues. So when his mama, Miss Dorothy, started making little comments about my empty womb at family dinners, I said nothing. When his sister Vanessa started asking when are we going to give her some nieces and nephews, I just smiled and said, "In God's time." When the church lady started whispering about how long we'd been married without children, I held my head up and kept praising the Lord. Meanwhile, I was dying inside. Every family gathering became a reminder that I was carrying yet another one of Tyrone's secrets. Every comment about my fertility felt like a knife, especially when I knew the truth. But I kept my mouth shut because that's what good wives do, right? We protect our husbands' egos even when it costs us our own peace. We finally got pregnant in 2008 after 3 years of trying and 2 years of fertility treatments that I paid for. Tyrone never contributed a dime to those doctor visits, those medications, those procedures. But when little Malik was born, you'd have thought Tyrone had moved mountains to make it happen. "That's my boy," he announced to everyone in the hospital waiting room. "I told y'all I was going to give you a grandson." I was laying there, exhausted from 18 hours of labor, watching him take credit for something that had taken 3 years and thousands of my dollars to achieve. But I smiled. I was so happy to finally be a mama, and Tyrone seemed genuinely excited about being a daddy. For about 6 months. Once the novelty wore off, once Malik started crying at night and needing constant attention, once being a father became actual work instead of just bragging rights, Tyrone checked out again. "Baby, can you handle the 2 a.m. feeding? I gotta work early tomorrow." Except he didn't have work early. He'd finally gotten another construction job, but it was part-time, and he was usually dragging himself out of bed at the last possible minute. "Tyrone, I work too. I'm exhausted." "Yeah, but you're better with him. Mothers have that natural instinct." Natural instinct. Code for, I don't want to do the hard parts. So I did the night feedings, the diaper changes, the doctor appointments. I pumped milk at work, rushed home during lunch breaks to check on the baby, arranged childcare, and somehow I was still expected to keep the house clean, cook dinner, and be available for whatever Tyrone needed. We had 2 more babies, Jasmine in 2010 and little Tyrone Jr. in 2012. Each pregnancy, I hoped things would be different. Each time I thought maybe becoming a father again would help Tyrone step up, become the man I married. Instead, he became more comfortable with me handling everything. "Paulina's got it under control," became his standard response whenever anyone asked about the kids. "She's good at all that mother stuff." Mother stuff. Like raising his children was just a hobby I was good at, not a responsibility we were supposed to share. But here's what really started breaking my heart. It wasn't just that he wasn't helping. It was that he couldn't even acknowledge what I was doing. In his mind, I was just naturally better at all the hard parts of life, so it made sense for me to handle them. Taking care of 3 small children while working full time wasn't a sacrifice I was making. It was just what wives and mothers do. And the money situation, child, that got worse too. By 2011, I'd been promoted to supervisor at the medical billing company. I was making decent money, had good benefits, and even started taking some business classes at the community college in the evenings. My catering business was growing too. Word was getting around about Miss Ruby's daughter who could cook just as good as her mama. Meanwhile, Tyrone was still doing part-time construction, always talking about getting his own crew together, but never taking the steps to make it happen. He'd work for a few months, then get laid off, then spend weeks looking for the right opportunity while I kept the bills paid. But here's the part that really got to me. Whenever we were around family or friends, Tyrone would talk like he was the provider. "Yeah, we're thinking about getting a bigger place," he'd say at his cousin's barbecue, one hand on my shoulder like the proud husband and father. We, like it was a joint decision, like he had anything to do with the money being saved for that bigger place. "Tyrone's doing so well," Miss Dorothy would tell the church ladies. "He's taking such good care of Paulina and those babies." And I'd stand there, smiling and nodding, letting everyone believe that my husband was handling his business when I knew good and well I was the one keeping us afloat. You want to know why I did that? Pride. Not my pride, his pride. I thought protecting his ego was the same thing as protecting my marriage. I thought if I could just hold things together long enough, he'd eventually step up and become the man I needed him to be. But you can't love somebody into being responsible. You can't sacrifice your way into their respect. I learned that the hard way. In 2013, I finally saved enough money to buy us a house. Not rent, buy. A real house with a yard and 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. I'd been setting aside money for years, working extra hours, doing catering jobs on weekends, cutting coupons, shopping sales. Every dollar I could spare went into that house fund. When I found the perfect place, a little brick house in a good neighborhood with decent schools, I was so excited. This was it. This was the dream we talked about when we first got married. A real home for our family. Baby, I told Tyrone, showing him the pictures on my laptop, look at this house. It's perfect for us. 3 bedrooms, big kitchen, fenced backyard for the kids. And I've saved enough for the down payment. He looked at the pictures and I could see something shift in his face. Not excitement, something else. Something I didn't understand at the time. How much is the down payment? He asked. $15,000. I've got it saved. $15,000? His voice got quiet. You saved $15,000? Baby, I've been saving for 3 years, working extra hours, doing the catering business. I thought you knew. But he didn't know, because he'd never paid attention to our finances beyond making sure his personal needs were met. He didn't know how much I made, how much I saved, how much I was actually contributing to our household. In his mind, we were just getting by, and somehow I was making it work with my little job and my little side business. Finding out that his wife had saved $15,000 while he was bouncing from job to job, that hurt his pride in a way I hadn't expected. We can't afford a house right now, he said, closing the laptop. Baby, I just told you I have the down payment saved. Paulina, there's more to buying a house than the down payment. There's mortgage payments, insurance, maintenance. What if I lose my job again? Then we'll figure it out, just like we always do. But that was the wrong thing to say, because it reminded him that figuring it out usually meant me figuring it out while he waited for better opportunities. We argued about that house for weeks. He kept coming up with new reasons why it wasn't the right time, why we needed to wait, why it was too risky. But I could see what was really happening. He was scared. Scared that buying a house would make it obvious to everyone, including himself, that I was the one with the real money, the real stability, the real plan for our future. Finally, I made a decision that changed everything. I bought the house anyway. Not we bought it. I bought it. My name on the deed, my credit score, my down payment, my signature on all the paperwork. Tyrone, I said one evening after the kids were in bed, we're moving in 3 weeks. Moving where? Our new house. I closed on it today. The look on his face, y'all, it was like I'd slapped him. Hurt and anger and something else. Something I didn't understand at the time. You bought a house without telling me? I tried to tell you. We talked about it for months. You kept saying no, but you never gave me a real reason why. So I did what I needed to do for our family. For our family? You just bought a house without your husband's input. Tyrone, what input? You haven't contributed to the down payment. You haven't looked at properties. You haven't talked to the real estate agent or the mortgage company. What exactly did you want to input? That's when he said something that should have been my wake-up call right then and there. This ain't how marriage is supposed to work, Paulina. The man is supposed to be the head of the household. The man is supposed to make these kinds of decisions. Then be the head of the household. Make the money to make the decisions. Take care of your family the way you promised you would when we got married. He didn't have an answer for that, because we both knew the truth. I'd been the head of the household for years. I'd just been letting him pretend otherwise. Moving into that house should have been one of the happiest times of my life. And in many ways it was. Watching my babies run around in their own backyard, having family dinners in a real dining room, being able to invite folks over without being embarrassed about our tiny apartment. That was everything I dreamed of. But it also marked the beginning of a new kind of distance between me and Tyrone. He became resentful, sullen, like living in a house his wife had bought was some kind of personal insult. His family's reaction didn't help either. Paulina sure is ambitious, Miss Dorothy said to me at Sunday dinner, and it didn't sound like a compliment. Some women just need to be in control of everything, Vanessa added, cutting her eyes at me while she said grace. Control. Like wanting a stable home for my children was some kind of power trip. But I kept my mouth shut, kept protecting his pride, kept letting everyone believe what they wanted to believe about our marriage. Because that's what I've been trained to do. Keep the peace, protect the man's ego, hold the family together no matter what. I should have seen the warning signs earlier. I should have noticed when Tyrone started paying more attention to his appearance, started coming home later from work, starting being secretive with his phone. But I was so busy holding everything together, working full-time, raising 3 children, managing our household, growing my catering business, that I missed the signals. Or maybe I saw them and just didn't want to believe what they meant. The first real sign came in late 2014. I was doing laundry and went through Tyrone's pockets before throwing his jeans in the wash. That's when I found it. A small bottle of oil. Body oil. The kind men use to keep their skin smooth and smelling good. Now, I knew Tyrone. He wasn't the type to spend money on fancy grooming products. He used whatever soap was on sale and called it a day. So finding this expensive-looking oil in his pocket was unusual. Baby, I asked him that evening, holding up the bottle, what's this? What's what? This oil. I found it in your jeans. Oh, that? One of the guys at work gave it to me. Said it was good for dry skin. One of the guys at work giving out expensive body oil? Right. But I let it go because I wanted to believe him. Because questioning my husband about body oil felt petty and suspicious. And I didn't want to be that kind of wife. But I started paying attention. And honey, once you start really watching, you see everything. That bottle of oil became like a barometer for his lies. He'd leave the house with it full, come back with it half empty, take it out again the next day, same routine, week after week, month after month. And Tyrone, he started changing in ways that made my stomach hurt. He'd shower as soon as he came home from work, before even greeting me or the kids. He'd do his laundry himself, something he'd never done in our entire marriage. He started working overtime that never showed up on his paycheck, going to work events that he couldn't tell me anything about. But the worst part was how he started treating me, not just distant, cold, like I was an inconvenience in his life instead of his wife. Like coming home to his family was a chore he had to endure. Mama, Malik said to me one day in early 2015, why doesn't Daddy like us anymore? Out of the mouths of babes, y'all. My 8-year-old son could see what I'd been trying to deny. Baby, Daddy loves you. He's just busy with work. But he's always on his phone and he doesn't want to play with us anymore. It was true. Even when Tyrone was physically present, he was somewhere else mentally, always texting, always checking his phone, always ready to leave again for some reason or another. I started paying closer attention to his patterns. Tuesday and Thursday evenings, he had client meetings. Saturday afternoons, he had to check on job sites. Sunday after church, he needed to run errands that took hours. But here's what really got me. The oil bottle wasn't the only thing that was different. His whole attitude toward me changed. He stopped touching me, stopped kissing me goodbye, stopped any kind of physical affection that had been natural between us for years. At night, he'd turn his back to me in bed and be on his phone until I fell asleep. In the morning, he'd be up and gone before I woke up. We were living like roommates, not like husband and wife. And when I tried to address it, when I tried to ask what was wrong, why he seemed so unhappy, why we felt so disconnected, nothing's wrong, Paulina. You're imagining things. I'm not imagining anything, Tyrone. We barely talk anymore. We don't spend time together. You act like you can't stand to be around me. I work hard all day. I'm tired when I get home. That's normal. Normal. Like the complete breakdown of intimacy and communication of our marriage was just normal married life. But I knew better. I knew my husband, and this wasn't who he used to be. This was who he was becoming because someone else was getting the attention and affection that used to be mine. The confirmation came in spring 2015 in the most painful way possible. I was at the grocery store with the kids on the Saturday afternoon. Jasmine needed poster board for a school project, and I thought we'd make it a fun trip. Grocery shopping followed by ice cream. Normal family stuff. We were in the pharmacy section when Jasmine tugged on my sleeve. "Mama, isn't that Daddy?" I looked up and there he was. My husband. My husband of 10 years. Father of my 3 children. The man who told me that morning he had to check on a job site. He was with a woman. Not just any woman. A woman who was clearly not checking on job sites with him. She was petite, light-skinned, with long relaxed hair that flowed down her back. Pretty in that polished way that takes time and money to maintain. And the way they were standing together, the way she had her hand on his arm, the way he was looking at her, there was no mistaking what I was seeing. My husband was on a date with another woman, while his wife was grocery shopping with his children. I stood there in that aisle, holding Jasmine's hand, watching my marriage die in real time, watching this woman laugh at something my husband said, watching him look at her the way he used to look at me. And you know what the worst part was? The way he looked relaxed, happy, like he was exactly where he wanted to be, with exactly who he wanted to be with. "Mama," Malik said to me one day in early 2015, "You okay?" I realized I'd been standing there staring for I don't know how long, probably with my mouth open, trying to process what I was seeing. "I'm fine, baby. Let's get your sister's poster board and go home." But I wasn't fine. I was shattered. That night, after I put the kids to bed, after I'd pretended everything was normal through dinner and bath time and bedtime stories, I sat on my bed and cried. Quietly, so the children wouldn't hear, but harder than I'd cried since I was a child myself. Not because my husband was cheating, but because of how he looked at her. Like she was sunshine and I was shadow. Like she was everything I wasn't. Carefree, beautiful, worth his time and attention. When Tyrone came home that night, 3 hours later than he'd said he'd be, I was still awake. "How was the job site?" I asked him quietly. "Same old stuff. Boring work talk." He didn't even look at me. Just started getting undressed like it was any other night. "Anything interesting happened today?" "Nah, just work." He was lying to my face, standing in our bedroom, in the house that I had bought, looking at the woman that had supported him for 10 years and lying like it was nothing. "Tyrone," I said, and something in my voice must have been different because he finally looked at me. "Who is she?" For just a second, I saw panic flash across his face, but then he got defensive. "Who was who?" "The woman you were with at the grocery store today." He stared at me for a long moment, and I could see him trying to decide how much to lie and how much to admit. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I saw you, Tyrone, with my own eyes. The kids saw you too." "You must have seen someone who looks like me." "Someone who looks like him, with the same walk, the same laugh, the same jacket I bought him for his birthday." "Don't lie to me, please. Just don't lie to me anymore." Then I put the bottle back exactly where Tyrone had left it, in his dresser drawer, ready for his next romantic adventure. And I waited. But here's the thing about revenge, honey. The anticipation is almost as sweet as the actual event. For the rest of that day, I went about my normal routine with a lightness in my step that I hadn't felt in months. I picked up the kids from school, helped them with homework, cooked dinner, gave baths, read bedtime stories. Normal mama stuff. Except I wasn't the sad, defeated woman I'd been for so long. I was a woman with a plan. Tyrone came home around 9 p.m., claiming his client meeting had run long and they'd gone to dinner to discuss the project details. How did it go? I asked, noting that his shirt was wrinkled in a way that suggested it had been removed and put back on. Really well. I think I'm going to get the job. That's wonderful, baby. I'm so proud of you. And I was. I was proud of him for being exactly the kind of man I'd suspected he was, because it made what was coming next feel completely justified. The next few days, I watched him go through his routine. The bottle of oil came and went, came and went. Each time, he seemed perfectly normal when he got home. Each time, I wondered if my little modification was going to work. Until came Saturday evening, March 19th, 2016. A date I'll never forget as long as I live. Tyrone announced he had to make a quick run to check on a job site on a Saturday evening at 7 p.m. Won't be long, he said, grabbing his keys and that bottle of oil. Just need to make sure everything's secure for the weekend. A job site on Saturday evening that needed to be secured. Drive safe, I said, giving him the same sweet smile I'd been perfecting for weeks. As soon as he left, I called my friend Monica. Girl, it's time, I said. Time for what? Remember that conversation we had about getting evidence, about making sure I had proof of what's been going on? Monica had been encouraging me for months to get concrete evidence of Tyrone's cheating. She'd offered to help me follow him, take pictures, do whatever I needed to protect myself legally. Paulina, what are you up to? I need you to come over and help me with something. And we're taking the kids on a little drive. A drive where? To see exactly what kind of job site my husband is securing on a Saturday night. Monica was at my house in 20 minutes. I gathered up all 3 kids. Malik was now 8, Jasmine was 6, and little Tyrone Jr. was 4. Old enough to understand that we were going on an adventure, young enough not to ask too many questions. Where are we going, Mama? Jasmine asked as I buckled her into her car seat. We're going to find Daddy. Which was the truth. I had already looked up the address for Bernice Coleman's apartment. Willowbrook Apartments, Building C, Unit 247. I'd driven by before, just to see where my husband was spending so much of his time that should have been spent with his family. When we pulled into the parking lot at Willowbrook Apartments, I saw Tyrone's car immediately, parked right there in the visitor section like he wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. That's Daddy's car, Malik said, pointing out the window. Yes, baby, it is. Monica looked at me with concern. Paulina, what exactly are we doing here? We're going to find out what kind of business meeting requires parking at an apartment complex. I parked a few spaces away and turned off the engine. Building C was right in front of us, and I could see lights on in what I was pretty sure was Unit 247. Should I go knock on the door? Monica asked. No, we wait. Wait for what? You'll see. And honey, we didn't have to wait long. Within 10 minutes of us parking, we heard it, shouting, loud, panicked shouting, coming from Building C. Help! Somebody help us! It was a woman's voice, high-pitched and desperate. Oh my God, we're stuck. We can't get apart. Monica looked at me with wide eyes. Paulina, what? Help! Please! Somebody call 911! Now it was Tyrone's voice, and he sounded terrified. We need help! We're stuck together! I can't move! People started coming out of their apartments, drawn by the commotion. I could see lights turning on in windows, neighbors stepping onto their balconies to see what was happening. Mama, what's wrong with Daddy? Little Tyrone Jr. asked. Daddy's having a problem, maybe. Should we help him? Other people are helping him. We're just going to watch and make sure he's okay. Within minutes, I could see people gathering around Building C. Someone must have called 911 because soon I heard sirens in the
Hold
distance.
still. We are trying to separate
Paulina,
you.
what did
Do not
you
pull.
do? Monica whispered. I didn't answer. I just sat there, watching the chaos unfold, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Satisfaction. Pure, sweet satisfaction. The paramedics arrived first, followed by a fire truck and 2 police cars. I watched as they rushed into Building C with equipment looking serious and concerned. Mama, why are there so many trucks? Jasmine asked. Sometimes grown-ups need help from special people who know how to fix problems, I said. And boy, did they have a problem to fix. We sat there for over an hour watching the emergency responders work. Neighbors gathered in clusters, talking and pointing and shaking their heads. The apartment complex had turned into a circus, and my cheating husband was the main attraction. Finally, we saw them. 2 paramedics wheeling out a stretcher. No, 2 stretchers that were somehow connected. And on those stretchers were Tyrone and a woman I'd never seen up close but knew had to be Bernice. They were covered with sheets, but you could see they were lying face to face, and the paramedics were working carefully to position them without causing pain or further injury. What happened to them? One of the neighbors asked loudly enough for us to hear. Some kind of adhesive incident, one of the paramedics replied. They're stuck together with what looks like industrial strength glue. We're going to have to take them to the hospital to get them separated safely. Industrial strength glue. Honey, if only they knew it was just regular craft glue mixed with a little oil. How does something like that happen? Another neighbor asked. We're not sure, the paramedic said. They claimed they were using body oil, but somehow it turned into glue. Somehow. Like it was just a mysterious accident that had nothing to do with the wife who'd finally had enough. As they loaded the connected stretchers into the ambulance, I got my first clear look at Bernice. She was pretty, just like I'd seen from a distance. But right now, she looked mortified, absolutely humiliated, stuck to my husband in the most compromising position imaginable, being wheeled out in front of all her neighbors like some kind of freak show. And Tyrone? Honey, Tyrone looked like he wanted to disappear into the ground. His face was red with embarrassment, and he kept trying to cover himself with the sheet, even though the paramedics needed access to work on separating them. Is that man married? I heard one of the neighbors ask. I thought I saw a wedding ring. He told me he was single, said he was divorced. Single. Divorced. Of course that's what he told people. As the ambulance pulled away with my husband and his mistress literally stuck together, I started the car. Where are we going now, Mama? Malik asked. Home, baby. We're going home. Monica was staring at me like she'd never seen me before. Paulina, you swapped his oil with glue. I have no idea what you're talking about. You planned this whole thing. I plan to take my children for a drive and visit some apartments. That's all. You are diabolical. I'm creative. When we got home, I put the kids to bed early and sat down with a cup of tea to wait for whatever came next. I didn't have to wait long. My phone started ringing around 11 p.m. First call was from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. Paulina, this is Nurse Johnson from Methodist Hospital. Your husband Tyrone has been admitted and he's asking for you to come down here. He's in a unique situation and needs someone to bring him some clothes. Clothes. Because whatever he'd been wearing when he got stuck to Bernice was probably cut off by the paramedics. The second call came an hour later. This time it was Tyrone himself. Paulina, I need you to come to the hospital. Why? What happened? Are you hurt? There was an accident.
A weird accident. I need you to bring me some clothes and my insurance card. What kind of accident? It's hard to explain. Can you just come? Tyrone, it's midnight. The children are asleep. If you're not dying, it can wait until morning. Paulina, please, I really need you to come. There was something in his voice. Desperation, embarrassment, fear. Like he was finally realizing that his actions had consequences he couldn't control. I'll come in the morning with the children. We'll all come visit you together. No, don't bring the kids. It's not appropriate for children. Not appropriate for children. Like cheating on their mother was appropriate behavior for their father. Why isn't it appropriate, Tyrone? Because I'm not alone. Oh, who's with you? Silence. Long, uncomfortable silence. Tyrone, who's with you at the hospital? It's complicated. I'm sure it is. I'll see you in the morning with the children. I hung up the phone and went to bed. For the first time in months, I slept like a baby. The next morning, I got the kids dressed in their Sunday best and loaded them into the car. Where are we going, Mama? Jasmine asked. We're going to visit Daddy at the hospital. Is Daddy sick? Daddy is learning about consequences. Methodist Hospital was buzzing with activity when we arrived. I asked at the information desk for Tyrone Johnson's room number. He's in the special procedures wing, the receptionist said, looking at her computer screen with a confused expression. Room 314. But ma'am, you might want to check with the nurses station first. It's an unusual situation. Unusual. That was one way to put it. We took the elevator to the third floor, and I could hear the commotion before we even reached the nurses' station. Loud voices, arguing, what sounded like multiple people trying to talk over each other. Excuse me, I said to the nurse. I'm here to see my husband, Tyrone Johnson. The nurse looked at me with sympathy. Mrs. Johnson, I'm so sorry. This is probably very difficult for you. What's difficult? Well, your husband's situation and the other woman's family being here. It's created quite the scene. The other woman's family. Of course they were here. What room did you say he was in? 314. But Mrs. Johnson, maybe you should... Thank you. I walked down the hall toward room 314 and the voices got louder. I could hear Tyrone, I could hear a woman crying, and I could hear other people arguing about something. When I reached the door, I peeked inside and honey, it was better than anything I could have imagined. There was Tyrone lying on his side on a hospital bed, and there was Bernice lying on her side facing him on the same bed. They were still connected, but the doctors had managed to separate them enough that they weren't completely pressed against each other anymore. But they were both awake, both mortified, and both trying to explain to their respective visitors what had happened. Bernice's family was clustered around one side of the bed, an older woman who was obviously her mother, a man who looked like her father, and what appeared to be a sister or friend. Bernice, how does something like this happen? Her mother was saying. How do you get stuck to a man with glue? I don't know, Mama. We were just... And then suddenly we couldn't move? Just what, Bernice? What were you doing? Bernice's face turned red. We don't need to discuss the details. Oh, we're going to discuss the details, her father said grimly. Because this man told us he was divorced, but the nurse says his wife is coming to visit. That's when Tyrone saw me standing in the doorway. Paulina, he said, and his voice cracked. You came. Of course I came, baby. I brought the children to see their daddy. I stepped into the room with Malik, Jasmine, and little Tyrone Jr., and the atmosphere immediately became 10 times more tense. Bernice's family stared at me like I was a ghost. Here was the wife that wasn't supposed to exist, the woman their daughter's boyfriend had claimed was his ex. "Daddy!" Little Tyrone Jr. ran toward the bed, but I caught his hand. "Wait, baby. Daddy can't move right now. He's stuck." "Stuck to what?" "Stuck to that lady." All three of my children looked at the bed, taking in the sight of their father lying face to face with a stranger, connected in a way that was clearly intimate and completely inappropriate. "Who was that lady, Daddy?" Jasmine asked innocently. Tyrone looked like he wanted to die. She's a friend." "A friend?" Bernice's mother stepped forward. "A friend? You told my daughter you were going to marry her." Marriage. He'd been planning to marry Bernice while still married to me? "Oh, no, sir. We're very much married. Celebrated our 11th anniversary last month, didn't we, honey?" Tyrone couldn't look at me. Couldn't look at his children, couldn't look at Bernice's family. He just laid there, stuck to his mistress, while the truth came out in the most humiliating way possible. "How long have you been seeing my daughter?" Mrs. Coleman demanded. "Ma'am, I really think that's between them. But I can tell you that my husband has been coming home with less oil in his bottle for about 2 years now." "Oil?" Mr. Coleman looked confused. "Body oil, the kind people use for intimate purposes." The room went dead silent. Even the children picked up on the tension and moved closer to me. "You knew?" Bernice whispered, speaking to me for the first time. "Honey, a wife always knows. The question is what she chooses to do about it." "What did you do?" she asked, and there was something in her voice, fear, realization, the beginning of understanding. "I didn't do anything. I just took my children for a drive last night and happened to end up in your parking lot when all the commotion started." "The oil?" Tyrone said suddenly. "You switched the oil." "What oil, baby? I don't know anything about any oil. You switched it with glue. You knew I was going to what, Tyrone? Going to cheat on your wife? Going to lie to your children? Going to make promises to another woman while still married to me?" The room erupted. Bernice's parents started yelling at Tyrone. Bernice started crying. The children started asking questions I wasn't ready to answer. And through it all, Tyrone and Bernice remained stuck together, unable to escape each other or the consequences of their choices. A doctor came in, probably drawn by the noise. "Folks, I need everyone to calm down. We're still working on separating these two patients safely, and all this stress isn't helping." "How much longer?" Tyrone asked desperately. "It's a delicate process. The adhesive has bonded to the skin in several places. We need to dissolve it slowly to avoid injury. Could be several more hours." Several more hours, stuck together, humiliated, exposed in front of both their families. It was perfect. "Well," I said, gathering my children, "we just wanted to stop by and see how you were doing. Kids, say goodbye to Daddy." "Bye, Daddy," they said in unison, still confused, but obedient. "Paulina, wait," Tyrone called out as we headed for the door. "Yes?" "We need to talk." "Oh, I think you're going to be busy talking to a lot of people over the next few hours. When you get unstuck and come home, we'll talk then." "Come home?" Bernice's father stepped forward. "This man isn't going anywhere near my daughter again." "Sir, that's between them. But you're right. He probably should come home to his wife and children." I left them there. Tyrone, Bernice, her furious family, and the medical team trying to figure out how to separate two people who'd been bonded together by their own deception. On the drive home, Malik asked the question I'd been dreading. Mama, why was Daddy stuck to that lady? I pulled over and turned around to look at all three of my children. They deserved honesty, but age-appropriate honesty. Sometimes grown-ups make bad choices. Daddy made a choice that hurt our family. And sometimes when people make bad choices, they get consequences they don't expect. Is Daddy coming home? Jasmine asked. I don't know, baby. That depends on what Daddy decides to do next. Are you sad, Mama? Little Tyrone Jr. asked. No, baby. Mama's not sad. Mama's relieved. And I was. For the first time in 2 years, I felt like I could breathe. The secret was out. The lies were exposed. The woman who'd been unknowingly helping to destroy my marriage now knew exactly who she'd been sleeping with. And my husband, who'd spent months making me feel crazy for questioning his behavior, was literally stuck with the evidence of his betrayal. We spent the rest of Sunday at my parents' house. I told them everything, the affair, the lies, the oil bottle, and yes, what I'd done to expose it all. Paulina, my mama said, I can't say I approve of your methods, but I understand your feelings. Do you think I'm wrong, Mama? I think you're a woman who got tired of being taken for granted, and I think your husband is about to learn some hard lessons about the value of what he threw away. Daddy was more direct. That fool had a good woman and 3 beautiful children, and he chose to chase after someone else. Whatever happens to him, he brought on himself. When we got home that evening, I half expected to find Tyrone waiting for us, but the house was empty, quiet, peaceful. I put the children to bed and sat down to think about what came next. Because while today had been satisfying, it was just the beginning. I had decisions to make about my marriage, my family, my future. Before tonight, I was content to sit in my house, the house I'd bought with my own money, and enjoy the silence. No lies, no excuses, no wondering where my husband really was or what he was really doing. For the first time in years, I knew exactly where Tyrone was, and he wasn't going anywhere for a while. My phone rang around 10 p.m. It was a number I didn't recognize. Mrs. Johnson, this is Dr. Martinez from Methodist Hospital. I'm calling about your husband. Is he okay? He's fine. We were able to separate him and the other patient about an hour ago. No permanent damage, though they'll both be sore for a few days. That's good to hear. He's asking for someone to pick him up. He doesn't have a car here, and the other patient's family has made it clear they don't want him around. Of course they didn't. Their daughter had just discovered she'd been lied to for 2 years, that the man she loved was married with 3 children, that she'd been the other woman without even knowing it. What did you tell him? I told him I'd call his emergency contact. That's you, Mrs. Johnson. I see. Well, doctor, I appreciate you calling, but I won't be able to pick him up tonight. The children are asleep, and I don't have anyone to watch them. He could take a taxi. That's a good suggestion. He's a grown man. I'm sure he'll figure something out. There was a pause. Mrs. Johnson, forgive me for asking, but is everything all right? Your husband seems very anxious about coming home. Doctor, my husband was caught in a compromising position with another woman. I think his anxiety is understandable. I see. Well, we can't force anyone to stay, so if he wants to leave, he'll need to arrange his own transportation. That sounds reasonable. I hung up the phone and went to bed.
But he wasn't coming home tonight. Not to my house. Not to my bed. Not to the family he'd been betraying for years. Because, honey, some consequences you just have to live with.
and Tyrone Johnson was about to learn that actions have consequences in ways he'd never imagined. The next morning, I woke up to find 17 missed calls and 12 text messages on my phone. Most were from Tyrone, but a few were from numbers I didn't recognize. The text messages told the story. Paulina, I need to come home. We need to talk. I'm sorry. I know you're angry, but we can work this out. I love you. I love our family. Please don't throw away our marriage over one mistake. One mistake. 2 years of lying and cheating was one mistake. I'm at a motel, room 237 at the Budget Inn on Union Avenue. Can you bring me some clothes? The kids must be confused. We need to present a united front for them. Paulina, answer your phone. We're married. We have responsibilities to each other. Responsibilities. After 2 years of him ignoring his responsibilities to me and our children, now he wanted to talk about responsibility. There were also messages from other people. This is Bernice Coleman. We need to talk. Mrs. Johnson, this is Pastor Williams. I heard about the situation with Tyrone. If you need counseling or support, please call me. Girl, this is Shayla. I heard what happened at the hospital. Call me back. You are my hero. But the most interesting message was from attorney Patricia Washington. Mrs. Johnson, I heard about your husband's situation. If you're considering divorce, please call my office. Given the circumstances, you'll be in a very strong position. Divorce. The word I'd been avoiding for months was suddenly front and center. I made breakfast for the children and got them ready for school. They were full of questions about why Daddy hadn't come home, where he was, when they'd see him again. Daddy is staying somewhere else for a while, I told them. We're going to have to wait and see what happens next. After I dropped them off at school, I sat in my car in the parking lot and thought about my options. I could forgive Tyrone, take him back, go to counseling, try to rebuild our marriage, pretend that yesterday's humiliation was enough punishment and move forward. I could separate from him temporarily, make him work to earn back my trust, set conditions, establish boundaries, see if he was really willing to change. Or I could end it, file for divorce, split our assets, establish custody, and start over as a single mother. For 10 years, I'd chosen forgiveness. I'd chosen to give him another chance, to believe his promises, to sacrifice my own needs for the sake of keeping our family together. And where had it gotten me? Married to a man who thought so little of me that he'd carry on a 2-year affair while I supported our household and raised our children. My phone rang. It was Tyrone. Paulina, please, we need to talk. Talk. Not on the phone. Can you come to the motel? No. Then can you meet me somewhere? A restaurant, a coffee shop, anywhere neutral? Tyrone, what exactly do you want to say? I want to apologize. I want to explain. I want to fix this. Fix this? You think there's a way to fix this? There has to be. We have 10 years together. We have 3 children. We can't just throw that away. I didn't throw anything away. You did. Every time you chose to lie to me, every time you chose to spend time with her instead of your family, every time you used my money and my house and my car to go see another woman. I made a mistake. No, Tyrone. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk from the store. A mistake is being late for dinner. What you did was make a choice. Over and over, for 2 years, you chose her over me. It wasn't like that. What was it like? Explain it to me. I was confused. I was going through something. I felt like I wasn't good enough for you, like you were better than me, like you didn't need me. There it was, the truth. He cheated because I was too capable, too independent, too strong. So you decided to find someone who would make you feel needed? It wasn't a decision, it just happened. For 2 years? It just happened for 2 years? Paulina, I love you. I love our family. I made a terrible mistake, but we can get past this. Can we? Can you honestly tell me that if I hadn't caught you, you would have ended it with her? Silence. Were you planning to leave me for her? Silence. Did you tell her you loved her? Paulina, did you make plans with her? Talk about a future together? Promise her things you never promised me? It's complicated.
No, it's not. It's simple. You had a wife and family that you were tired of, and you found someone new and exciting, and you chose her. The only reason you want to come home now is because she found out about me and doesn't want you anymore. That's not true, isn't it? If she had been okay with sharing you, if her family hadn't thrown you out, would we be having this conversation? He couldn't answer that. Because we both knew that if Bernice had been willing to overlook the fact that he was married, he'd still be with her right now. I'm filing for divorce, I said. Paulina, no, please, don't make a decision when you're angry. I'm not angry, Tyrone. I'm done. There's a difference. What about the kids? The kids will be fine. They'll be better than fine. They'll grow up watching their mother respect herself enough to not accept betrayal and lies. You're taking my children away from me. I'm not taking anything away from you. You're welcome to be in their lives as much as you want, as long as you're honest with them and responsible for them. This isn't how it's supposed to end. No, it's not. It was supposed to end with us growing old together, watching our grandchildren play in the yard of the house I bought for our family. But you chose a different ending. I hung up the phone and called Attorney Washington. Mrs. Washington, this is Paulina Johnson. I'd like to schedule an appointment to discuss divorce proceedings. Of course, Mrs. Johnson. How does tomorrow at 2 p.m. sound? Perfect. That afternoon, I picked up the children from school and took them to my parents' house. I needed to tell them about the divorce before they heard it from someone else, and I wanted my mama and daddy there for support. Babies, I said, setting them down in my parents' living room. Mama needs to tell you something important. They looked at me with serious faces, probably sensing that whatever I was about to say would change their lives. Daddy and Mama are going to get divorced. That means we won't be married anymore, and Daddy won't live in our house anymore. Little Tyrone Jr. started crying immediately. I want Daddy to come home. I know, baby, but sometimes grown-ups can't live together anymore, even when they love their children very much. Is it because of that lady he was stuck to? Malik asked. Smart boy, too smart for his own good sometimes. Partly, yes. Daddy made choices that hurt our family, and now we have to make different choices. Where will Daddy live? Jasmine asked. I don't know yet, but he'll still be your daddy, and you'll still see him. That part won't change. Will we stay in our house? Malik asked. Yes, our house will always be our home. Over the next few hours, my parents helped me explain the situation to the children. They were upset, confused, and worried about how their lives would change, but they were resilient, like children usually are. And honestly, they didn't seem entirely surprised. They'd been watching their father become more and more absent from their family for months. In some ways, making it official was just acknowledging what they already knew. That evening, we had dinner at my parents' house. Comfort food and family time, and the reassurance that whatever happened, the children would always have love and stability. On the drive home, Malik asked me a question that broke my heart. Mama, are you sad about the divorce? I thought about how to answer that honestly. I'm sad that our family is changing, but I'm not sad about making a decision that's best for all of us in the long run. Are you mad at Daddy? No, baby. I'm disappointed in him, but being angry won't help anyone. Good, Jasmine said from the back seat, because anger makes your face look funny. Out of the mouths of babes, y'all. Even in the middle of the most difficult time in our lives, my children could still make me laugh. When we got home, I tucked them into bed and sat down to think about what the next few months would look like. Divorce proceedings, custody arrangements, dividing assets, explaining to friends and family, helping the children adjust. It felt overwhelming, but also liberating. For the first time in years, I was making decisions based on what was best for me and my children, not what was easiest or most convenient for a man who'd proven he didn't deserve that consideration. My phone rang again. This time, it was Bernice Coleman. Mrs. Johnson, this is Bernice. Could we talk? I almost hung up. What could this woman possibly have to say to me? What about? About what happened, about what I didn't know, about how sorry I am. Sorry. The woman who had been sleeping with my husband for 2 years was sorry? I'm listening. I didn't know he was married. I mean, really married. Living with you, sleeping in your bed, being a father to your children. He told me you were divorced, that you were just co-parenting. And you believed him. I wanted to believe him. He was charming, convincing. He made me feel special. Special. The same way he'd made me feel when we first met. Mrs. Johnson, I need you to know that if I had known the truth, I never would have gotten involved with him. I'm not the kind of woman who breaks up families.
But you are the kind of woman who doesn't ask questions when something seems too good to be true? Silence. Bernice, I appreciate you calling, but what's done is done. You didn't break up my family. My husband did. He made the choice to lie to both of us. I feel terrible about the kids, about you, about everything. Then learn from it. Next time someone tells you they're divorced, ask to see the papers. Next time someone claims to be single but only sees you at certain times and places, ask why. Don't take someone's word for something that could destroy another woman's life. You're right. I'm sorry. I know you are. But sorry doesn't undo 2 years of my marriage being a lie. I hung up and turned off my phone. I'd heard enough apologies for one day. Tomorrow, I'd meet with the attorney and start the legal process of ending my marriage. I'd figure out custody and assets and all the practical details of dissolving a 10-year partnership. But tonight, I was just going to sit in my house that I'd bought with my own money and enjoy the peace that comes with finally telling the truth. For years, I'd been living a lie, pretending my marriage was strong when it was falling apart, pretending my husband was faithful when he was cheating, pretending I was happy when I was miserable. Now, the truth was out. Messy, humiliating, painful truth, but truth nonetheless. And honey, as hard as the truth was to face, it was so much better than living a lie. The next morning, I woke up feeling lighter than I had in years. No wondering where my husband was or what lies he was telling. No pretending everything was fine when my marriage was falling apart. Just clarity, purpose, and the satisfaction that comes with finally taking control of your own life. I got the children ready for school and dropped them off, then drove straight to Attorney Washington's office. Her secretary had squeezed me in for an early appointment, and I was grateful. The sooner I started this process, the sooner I could close this chapter of my life. Mrs. Johnson, I have to say, in 20 years of family law, I've never had a case quite like yours. What do you mean? Well, usually when spouses catch their partners cheating, there's a lot of screaming, crying, dramatic confrontations. You orchestrated evidence. I got tired of being lied to. I wanted proof that couldn't be denied. And you certainly got that. The hospital incident is already being talked about around town. But more importantly for our purposes, it establishes a clear timeline and witnesses to your husband's infidelity. She opened the thick folder and pulled out several documents. Now, let's talk about your assets. You mentioned that you bought your house independently? Yes, ma'am. My name only on the deed, my money for the down payment, my credit score for the mortgage, everything. Do you have documentation of that? I pulled out a manila envelope I'd prepared. Closing documents, bank statements showing the down payment withdrawal, mortgage statements, property tax records, everything. Attorney Washington reviewed the papers with growing satisfaction. This is excellent. What about other major purchases? I have receipts for everything. Every appliance, every piece of furniture, every car payment, every school fee for the children. I've been keeping records for years. Why? My daddy always told me to keep receipts for big purchases, tax purposes, warranty claims, insurance, but also because he said you never know when you might need to prove what belongs to you. Smart daddy, I thought. Real smart. Mrs. Johnson, this level of documentation is unusual and extremely helpful. Most people can't prove who paid for what, especially after years of marriage. But you have a paper trail that clearly shows you've been the primary financial provider. The only financial provider, really. Tyrone would work for a few months, get laid off, then spend weeks looking for the right opportunity, while I kept everything going. And you have proof of his unemployment periods? Bank statements showing no deposits from him for months at a time. Records of me paying all the household bills, even receipts for groceries, gas, children's clothes, school supplies. If money went out of our household, I probably have a receipt showing I paid for it. Attorney Washington was taking notes rapidly. What about his recent employment? Part-time construction work, maybe 20 hours a week when he felt like showing up. I was still carrying the majority of our expenses. And the affair? 2 years, as far as I can document, maybe longer. I have evidence of him using household resources, car, gas money, that oil, to maintain the relationship. Mrs. Johnson, I'm going to be honest with you. Given the circumstances, the evidence, and the financial documentation you've provided, you're in an extremely strong position. Tennessee is not a no-fault state, and adultery is grounds for divorce that can affect asset division. What does that mean? It means that not only do you have a clear case for divorce, but you're likely to retain most of your assets since you can prove you acquired them independently. And given that you can document being the primary provider for your children, custody shouldn't be an issue. For the first time since this whole mess started, I felt like I could breathe fully. How long will this take? With cooperation from your husband, about 3 to 6 months. Without cooperation, she shrugged, could be longer. But Mrs. Johnson, given what happened at the hospital, I suspect he'll be motivated to settle quickly and quietly. She was right about that. The last thing Tyrone wanted was for the details of his affair to become public record in the contested divorce. What do I need to do? First, we filed the petition. Then, we serve him with papers. After that, we start the process of dividing assets and establishing custody. But Mrs. Johnson, I need to ask, do you want anything from him? What do you mean? Alimony, splitting his future earnings, anything like that. Given that you've been the breadwinner, you'd be entitled to it.
I thought about that for a moment. Did I want Tyrone's money? Did I want to be tied to him financially for years to come? No, I said finally. I don't want anything from him except for him to be responsible for his share of the children's expenses. I want a clean break. Are you sure? You'd be entitled to significant compensation. Attorney Washington, I've been supporting myself and my family for years. I don't need his money. I just need him out of my life and away from my assets. That's unusual, but it will make the process much simpler. Most men would be thrilled to walk away from a marriage without paying alimony. Most men didn't spend 2 years cheating on their wives while living in houses their wives bought. She smiled at that. Fair point. Let me draw up the papers. That afternoon, I went home and did something I'd been planning for weeks. I started reclaiming my house. See, over the years, I'd bought everything. The furniture, the appliances, the decorations, the dishes, the electronics, everything. And I had receipts to prove it. But I'd been living like these things belonged to both of us, like our marriage was a partnership where we shared everything equally. Now that the partnership was dissolved, it was time to take inventory of what was actually mine. I started in the bedroom. The bed frame, bought by me in 2013, receipt in my files. The mattress, bought by me in 2014, warranty information in my name. The dresser, the nightstands, the lamp, all purchased by me, all documented. Tyrone's clothes could stay. I wasn't petty enough to throw away his belongings. But everything else, everything I'd worked for, saved for, chosen carefully, that was coming with me. Not that I was planning to move. This was my house. But I wanted to make it clear what belonged to whom before any legal proceedings started. I moved through the house room by room, making lists, checking receipts, taking photos. The kitchen table and chairs, mine. The living room sofa and coffee table, mine. The television, the sound system, the children's furniture, all mine. By the time I finished, I realized that Tyrone owned almost nothing in our house except his clothes and his personal items. Everything else, every single thing that made our house a home, had been purchased with my money. The children came home from school while I was in the middle of this inventory process. Mama, what are you doing? Jasmine asks, finding me in the living room with a clipboard and a box of receipts. I am making a list of everything that belongs to us. Why? Because when people get divorced, they have to decide who gets what, and I want to make sure we keep everything that's ours. Is Daddy going to take our stuff? Little Tyrone Jr. asked, looking worried. No, baby. Daddy can't take anything that doesn't belong to him. Good, Malik said firmly. He doesn't deserve our stuff anyway. Out of the mouths of babes, y'all. Again. That evening, my phone rang. It was Tyrone. Paulina, I heard you went to see a lawyer today. Word travels fast. Are you really going through with this? Yes. What about giving me a chance to make it right? Tyrone, you had 2 years to make it right. You chose to make it worse instead. I can change. Maybe. But not with me.
Not in this marriage. You'll have to prove that to someone else. What about the kids? What about them? You'll still be their father. You'll still have visitation rights. You just won't be my husband anymore. Paulina, you're taking everything. The house, the kids, everything I've worked for. I had to laugh at that. I actually laughed out loud. What did you work for, Tyrone? What exactly are you claiming that you worked for? The house that I bought with my money, with my credit, in my name only. The furniture that I have receipts for, every piece. The cars, both titled in my name because my credit was good enough to get the loans. I helped. With what? Show me one thing in this house that you paid for. One bill, one purchase, one investment. Show me your financial contribution to this family. Silence. You can't, can you? Because for years, you've been living off my work while contributing nothing but lies and betrayal. I worked construction, part-time, when you felt like it. And even then, your paychecks barely covered your personal expenses, your gas, your clothes, your entertainment. You weren't contributing to the household, Tyrone. You were just another person I was supporting. That's not fair. You know what's not fair? Working overtime to pay for a house while your husband uses that house to get ready for dates with his mistress. You know what's not fair? Raising 3 children essentially by yourself while your husband plays house with another woman. You know what's not fair? Protecting your reputation and covering for your failures while you destroy everything I built. I made mistakes. You made choices. For 2 years, you chose her over me, over our children, over our marriage. The only mistake I made was letting you get away with it for so long.
The papers will be served tomorrow, I continued. You can contest the divorce if you want, but you can't contest the facts. I have documentation for everything, Tyrone. Every purchase, every payment, every contribution to this household. Your lawyer's going to tell you the same thing mine told me. You don't have a case. So that's it. 10 years of marriage means nothing? It meant everything to me. That's why I fought so hard to make it work. That's why I sacrificed so much to hold it together. But it meant nothing to you, or you wouldn't have thrown it away for Bernice Coleman. I hung up the phone and went to check on the children. They were doing homework in their rooms, and I felt a wave of gratitude for their resilience. They'd been through so much disruption, but they were handling it with grace. That night, I made their favorite dinner. Fried chicken, mac and cheese, green beans, cornbread. Comfort food for a family that was rebuilding itself. Mama, Malik said over dinner, are we going to be okay? Better than okay, baby. We're going to be great. How do you know? Because we've got each other, we've got our home, and we've got everything we need to build a good life. What about money? Jasmine asked. Daddy said you can't afford the house without him. When had he said that? And why was he putting financial worries on a 6-year-old? Baby girl, Mama has been paying for this house by herself for 3 years. Daddy was wrong about that, just like he was wrong about a lot of things. Are you going to get married again? Little Tyrone Jr. asked. I don't know, sweetheart. Right now, I'm focused on taking care of you 3 and building our life together. Maybe someday there will be room for someone else, but only if they're good enough to deserve a place in our family. They'd have to be really, really good, Malik said seriously. Really, really, really good, Jasmine added.
Really? Times a million, little Tyrone Jr. contributed. Times infinity, I said, and they all giggled. The next morning, a process server delivered the divorce papers to Tyrone at the Budget Inn. I know because Attorney Washington called to confirm service. Mrs. Johnson, he's been served. He has 30 days to respond. What happens if he doesn't respond? Then we proceed with an uncontested divorce and you get everything you're asking for by default. And if he does respond? Then we negotiate, but given his position, I suspect he'll be reasonable. She was right. 3 days later, Tyrone called me. Paulina, I got the papers. I figured you would. I want to talk about this before we go through lawyers. Tyrone, we tried talking. You chose to lie instead. Now we do this legally. I'm not fighting the divorce. Good. But I want to see my kids. You can see them. The papers outline a reasonable visitation schedule. And I want some of my stuff. What stuff? Your clothes are still here. You can come get them. I mean household stuff. Things we bought together. We didn't buy anything together, Tyrone. I bought things. You were just there when I brought them home. That's not how marriage works. It's how our marriage worked, and I have receipts to prove it. You can't keep everything. I can keep everything I paid for, which is everything. This is ridiculous. You're being vindictive. I'm being factual. If you want to contest any of this, have your lawyer contact mine. But bring receipts, because that's what this is going to come down to. 2 weeks later, Attorney Washington called with an update. Mrs. Johnson, I heard from your husband's attorney today. And? He's not contesting the divorce. He's not fighting for assets. He's not even asking for alimony. Really? Really? I think once his lawyer explained how strong your documentation was and how public the circumstances of his infidelity became, he decided that a quick, quiet divorce was in his best interest. What about custody? He's agreeing to the visitation schedule you proposed. Weekends twice a month, Wednesday evenings, half of school holidays. And child support? He's agreeing to the state guidelines, which, given his income level, isn't much, but it's something. It felt anticlimactic, honestly. I'd been prepared for a fight, for him to contest everything, to make this process as difficult as possible. Instead, he was just giving up. Why do you think he's not fighting? I asked. Mrs. Johnson, your husband is embarrassed. The whole town knows what happened at the hospital. His mistress's family knows he lied to her. His own family is probably asking uncomfortable questions. The last thing he wants is a drawn-out court battle where all of this becomes public record. That made sense. Tyrone had always cared more about his image than his integrity. How long until it's final?
60 days if he signs everything without changes. Could be faster if we expedite. Faster sounded good to me. That weekend, Tyrone came to pick up the children for his first official visitation. It was awkward, standing on my front porch with a man I'd been married to for 10 years, making small talk while our kids got their overnight bags. "You look good," he said, and I could hear surprise in his voice. I did look good. I'd been sleeping better, eating better, feeling better since he'd moved out. Amazing what peace of mind could do for a woman's appearance. "Thank you. The house looks different." I redecorated a little. What I'd actually done was remove every trace of his presence. The pictures on the mantle now showed me and the children, my parents, family events where Tyrone had been too busy to attend. I'd rearranged the furniture to suit my taste instead of accommodating his preferences. I'd even changed the bedroom around completely, making it my space instead of ours. "It looks nice," he said, but he sounded uncertain. "We ready, Daddy?" Malik appeared with his backpack. "Ready, buddy." The children kissed me goodbye and trooped out to Tyrone's car. The car I'd co-signed for because his credit wasn't good enough. I'd have to see about getting my name off that loan. Paulina, Tyrone said before leaving, I want you to know I'm sorry for everything. I know you are. Do you think down the road there's any chance we could try again? I looked at this man who'd spent 2 years lying to me, who'd humiliated me in front of the whole town, who put his personal desires above his family's well-being, and I felt nothing but pity. No, Tyrone, there's not. Why not? People work through infidelity all the time. Because trust once broken can't be unbroken. Because respect once lost can't be demanded back. Because I've learned that I'm happier without you than I ever was with you. He looked like I slapped him. You don't mean that. I mean every word of it. Have a good weekend with your children. I closed the door and went back to my peaceful house, my quiet evening, my life that finally belonged to me again. Over the next few weeks, I established new routines with the children. We had family movie nights every Friday. We cooked together on Sunday afternoons. We took walks in the neighborhood, visited museums, went to parks, all the things I'd wanted to do as a family, but couldn't because Tyrone was always somewhere else. My catering business started picking up too. Word was spreading about my cooking, and I was getting requests for bigger events. With Tyrone out of the picture, I had more time and energy to focus on growing my business. One Saturday morning, while the kids were at their father's house, I was preparing for a large catering order when my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Miss Dorothy, Tyrone's mother, standing on my porch. Miss Paulina, we need to talk. Good morning, Miss Dorothy. Come in. She followed me into the kitchen where I was prepping vegetables for a church dinner I was catering that evening. I heard about the divorce. Yes, ma'am. And I heard about the circumstances. I imagine you did. She was quiet for a moment, watching me work. Paulina, I owe you an apology. That surprised me. Miss Dorothy had never apologized to me for anything in 10 years of marriage. For what? For not seeing what kind of man my son was becoming. For not recognizing what a good wife you were trying to be. For blaming you when things went wrong instead of holding him accountable. I stopped chopping and looked at her. Miss Dorothy, you don't need to. Yes, I do. I raised that boy better than he's been acting. His father and I taught him to respect women, to honor his family, to take care of his responsibilities. Somewhere along the way, he forgot those lessons. He's a grown man. He makes his own choices. But I'm his mother, and I should have seen that he was failing as a husband and father. I should have spoken up when I saw you carrying everything by yourself. You saw that? Honey, I'm not blind. I saw you working yourself to death while he lounged around. I saw you making excuses for him when he didn't show up to family events. I saw you protecting his pride while he was destroying your marriage. Then why didn't you say anything? Because I thought it was your job to fix him. I thought if you were patient enough, loving enough, understanding enough, he'd eventually grow up and be the man you deserved. That's not how it works. No, it's not. And I'm sorry it took me this long to realize that. We worked in silence for a few minutes, Ms. Dorothy helping me prep vegetables while I seasoned the meat. What's going to happen to him? She asked. I don't know. That's up to him. Will you let the children see their grandparents? Miss Dorothy, you're always welcome here. You and Mr. James. They're your grandparents, and I would never interfere with that relationship.
Even after everything? You didn't cheat on me. You didn't lie to me. You didn't betray our family. Tyrone did. My issue is with him, not with you." She started crying then, quiet tears that she wiped away with the back of her hand. "I'm so sorry, Paulina, for all of it. I know you are. Are you going to be okay? Financially, I mean?" "Better than okay. I've been supporting this household by myself for years. Now I just don't have to support a grown man who contributed nothing." "And the children? They're resilient. They're smart. They're going to be fine. What about you? Are you going to find someone else?" "Maybe someday. But right now, I'm focused on rebuilding my life and raising my children. If the right man comes along eventually, someone who deserves us, then we'll see. He'll have to be quite a man to measure up to you." That was probably the nicest thing Miss Dorothy had ever said to me. After she left, I thought about forgiveness. I'd forgiven Tyrone for the sake of my own peace, but that didn't mean I was going to let him back into my life. I'd forgiven his family for their years of subtle criticism, but that didn't mean I was going to pretend it hadn't happened. Forgiveness, I was learning, wasn't about forgetting or excusing. It was about refusing to let someone else's mistakes poison your future. A month later, the divorce was final. I received the papers in the mail on a Thursday morning, and just like that, I was Paulina Jenkins again, taking back my maiden name, reclaiming my identity, starting fresh. That evening, I celebrated with the children. We went out to dinner at their favorite restaurant, then came home for ice cream and a movie. "Are you sad about the divorce, Nama?" asked Jasmine as we snuggled on the couch. "No, baby, I'm relieved." "What's relieved mean?" "It means Mama doesn't have to worry about Daddy's lies anymore. It means we can just focus on being happy together." "I'm happy," little Tyrone Jr. announced. "Daddy was always grumpy when he lived here." "He was," Malik agreed. "Now our house feels peaceful." Peaceful. That was exactly the right word. But just because I was at peace didn't mean the drama was over. Because, honey, when you humiliate a man the way I'd humiliated Tyrone, when you prove to the whole town that his wife was the one with the money and the power and the strength, his ego doesn't just accept it quietly. The first sign of trouble came in August, about 3 months after the divorce was final. I was at the grocery store with the children when I ran into Shayla. "Girl," she said, pulling me aside while the kids picked out cereal, "have you heard what Tyrone's been saying about you?" I tried not to pay attention to what Tyrone says about anything. "Well, you might want to pay attention to this. He's been telling people that you stole everything from him, that you manipulated the divorce proceedings and took assets that belong to both of you." "That's ridiculous. I have receipts for everything." "I know that, and you know that, but other people don't. He's making it sound like you were vindictive and greedy." "What people?" "People at church, people around town, some of his construction buddies. He's trying to rehabilitate his image by making you the villain." The audacity was breathtaking. The man who lived off my work for 10 years was now claiming I trapped him. The man who cheated for 2 years was now claiming I drove him to it. And people are believing this? Some are. You know how it is. People love a good story, especially one where the successful woman gets taken down a peg. That stung, but it wasn't surprising. Success in women made some people uncomfortable, especially when it came at the expense of male ego. "What should I do?" "Nothing," Shayla said firmly. "Don't defend yourself. Don't get into arguments. Don't give him the satisfaction of a response. People who know you know the truth. People who don't know you aren't worth convincing. She was right, but it still hurt to know that my reputation was being attacked by the same man I'd protected for years. 2 weeks later, the attacks escalated. I was at work when my supervisor, Mrs. Henderson, called me into her office. "Paulina, I need to ask you about something, and I want you to know that I don't believe it for a second, but I have to follow up on complaints." "What kind of complaints?" "Someone called our HR department claiming that you've been using company time and resources for personal business, specifically your catering business." My blood went cold. "That's not true." "I know it's not. I've watched you work for years. You're one of our most dedicated employees." But the caller was very specific about dates and times and claimed to have evidence. "What kind of evidence?" "Photos of you leaving the building during work hours with catering supplies. Phone records showing you taking personal calls during business hours." I thought about that. There had been a few times when I'd picked up catering supplies during my lunch break or taken calls from clients during my 15-minute breaks. All perfectly legal and within company.
Mrs. Henderson, you know I'm allowed to conduct personal business during my breaks and lunch hours. Of course. And like I said, I don't believe these complaints have any merit, but I have to investigate them officially. Who made the complaint? The caller wouldn't give their name, but Paulina, the voice sounded familiar, like someone who knows our company well enough to know which department to call and what accusations would be taken seriously. Someone like an ex-husband who'd picked me up from work enough times to know the building layout and procedures. "I'll cooperate fully with any investigation," I said. "And I think you'll find that I've never violated company policy or used work time inappropriately." "I'm sure we will. But Paulina, be careful. Whoever's doing this knows enough about your work and your business to make trouble for you." That evening, I called Attorney Washington. "Mrs. Washington, I think my ex-husband is trying to sabotage my employment." I explained the situation, the anonymous complaints, the specific knowledge required to make them credible. "Mrs. Johnson, this could constitute harassment, especially if we can prove he's the one making the calls." "How do we prove that?" "We document everything, every incident, every complaint, every suspicious occurrence. If there's a pattern, we can potentially get a restraining order." "A restraining order? Is it that serious?" "It could be. When someone starts attacking your livelihood, when they're trying to undermine your ability to support your children, that's crossing a line." Over the next month, the harassment continued. More anonymous complaints to my job, always with just enough detail to be credible, but never enough evidence to stick. Someone called the IRS claiming I was underreporting income from my catering business. Someone reported my car as possibly stolen to the police. Each incident was minor on its own, but together they painted a picture of someone trying to systematically disrupt my life. The breaking point came in September. I was at home one evening helping the children with homework when there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find 2 police officers standing on my porch. "Mrs. Jenkins, we're responding to a report of child neglect at this address." "Child neglect?" "Yes, ma'am. Someone called in a complaint claiming that children were left unsupervised here while their mother worked late." I looked behind me at my 3 children, clearly well cared for, sitting at the kitchen table working on their homework while dinner cooked on the stove. "Officers, as you can see, my children are right here with me. They're fed, they're safe, and they're being supervised." "Yes, ma'am, we can see that. Can you account for your whereabouts earlier today?" I was at work until 5 p.m., then picked up all 3 children from their after-school program and came straight home. I have receipts from the pickup, and my supervisor can verify my work schedule. The officers looked around, talked to each of the children briefly, and determined that the complaint was unfounded.
Mrs. Jenkins, we're required to investigate all reports, but it's clear that your children are well cared for. Officer, can I ask who made the report? Anonymous call. But ma'am, this is the third unfounded complaint we've gotten about this address in the past month. Third complaint? I'd only known about this one. What were the other complaints? Loud parties, disturbing the neighbors, possible drug activity, things like that. All anonymous, all unfounded when we investigated. Someone was trying to build a case against me. Someone was trying to make me look like an unfit mother, an irresponsible employee, a dishonest business owner. And I had a pretty good idea who that someone was. The next morning, I called Attorney Washington again. Mrs. Washington, we need to file for a restraining order. This has gone too far. What happened now? I told her about the police visits, the child neglect complaint, the pattern of harassment. Mrs. Johnson, this is serious. If someone is making false reports, trying to get your children taken away, trying to get you fired, that's criminal harassment. Can we prove it's Tyrone? We can try. The phone company keeps records of anonymous calls to police and government agencies. If we can show that these calls are coming from his phone or location, we have a case. Do it. I need to warn you, fighting this could get expensive, and it might escalate the situation. Mrs. Washington, he's already escalated the situation. He's trying to destroy my reputation, my job, my relationship with my children. I can't just sit back and let him do that. You're right. Let me start the paperwork. But while we were preparing legal action, Tyrone made a mistake that gave me all the ammunition I needed. That following Saturday, when he came to pick up the children for his weekend visitation, he was drunk. Not falling down drunk, but clearly impaired. I could smell alcohol on his breath, his words were slightly slurred, and his movements were unsteady. Tyrone, you've been drinking. I had one beer with lunch. I'm fine. You're not driving anywhere with my children. They're my children too, and it's my weekend.
Not when you're under the influence. Paulina, don't be ridiculous. I'm perfectly capable of driving. Kids, I called back into the house. Come back inside. You're not going with your father today. What? Malik appeared in the doorway. Why not? Because your father isn't safe to drive right now. Tyrone's face got red. You can't keep my children from me. I can when you show up intoxicated. That's exactly what I'm supposed to do. I'm calling my lawyer. You do that, and while you're at it, explain to him why you thought it was appropriate to drive under the influence with 3 children in the car. He left angry and threatening legal action, but I had witnesses. The children had seen him, smelled the alcohol, heard his slurred words, and I had something else too. I'd recorded our entire conversation on my phone. Monday morning, I filed for emergency modification of the custody arrangement. Attorney Washington presented the recording, the children's testimony, and the pattern of harassment as evidence that Tyrone was becoming unstable and potentially dangerous. The judge was not impressed with Tyrone's behavior. Mr. Johnson, appearing intoxicated for child visitation is unacceptable. Combined with the evidence of harassment toward your ex-wife, I'm ordering supervised visitation only until you complete alcohol counseling and anger management classes. Supervised visitation. Tyrone could only see his children in the presence of a court-appointed supervisor at his own expense. Your Honor, this is ridiculous. My ex-wife is vindictive and... Mr. Johnson, I've reviewed the evidence, the pattern of anonymous complaints, the timing of these incidents, and your behavior during attempted visitation all suggest that you're struggling to accept the terms of your divorce.
Until you can demonstrate that you can prioritize your children's well-being over your personal grievances, visitation will remain supervised. Tyrone looked at me across the courtroom with pure hatred. But for the first time in months, I felt safe, protected, vindicated. After the hearing, Attorney Washington pulled me aside. Mrs. Johnson, you should know that during discovery, we found some interesting information about your ex-husband's finances. What kind of information? He's been receiving money from someone, regular deposits that don't match his employment income. From who? We're still investigating, but it appears to be from a woman, possibly Miss Coleman. Bernice was giving him money. The woman he'd humiliated at the hospital, whose family had thrown him out, was now supporting him financially. Why would she do that? Some women have a hard time letting go, even when they know a man is bad for them. Or maybe she feels guilty about the affair and thinks helping him makes up for it. Either way, it explains how Tyrone had been able to afford a lawyer, rent at the Budget Inn, and the time to harass me instead of finding a job and rebuilding his life. But honey, the universe has a way of handling people who refuse to learn their lessons. And Tyrone Johnson was about to get an education he'd never forget. 3 months after the supervised visitation order, I was thriving in ways I hadn't imagined possible. My catering business had grown so much that I was considering leaving my day job to focus on it full time. The children were doing well in school, happy and secure in our peaceful home, and I'd even started dating. Nothing serious, just dinner with a nice man named Michael who owned a small accounting firm and understood the value of a hardworking woman. But most importantly, I'd found myself again, the confident, capable woman my parents had raised, the woman who didn't need a man's validation to know her worth, the woman who could build something beautiful and protect it fiercely. One evening in December, I was finishing up a catering order for a law firm's holiday party when my phone rang. It was Mrs. Henderson from work. Paulina, I wanted to give you a heads up. We got another one of those anonymous complaints about you today. What was it this time? Same nonsense as before. Claims you're running a business out of the office, using company equipment, that sort of thing. But Paulina, this time they made a mistake. What kind of mistake? They used your married name, called you Mrs. Johnson instead of Miss Jenkins, and they mentioned details about your ex-husband that only someone close to the situation would know. Finally, a slip-up that could tie the harassment back to Tyrone. What did you tell them? I told them that we'd investigated these claims multiple times and found them baseless. And I told them that any future complaints from this source would be considered harassment and reported to the police. Did they say anything else? Actually, yes. The caller got angry when I didn't take the complaint seriously, started ranting about how you'd stolen everything from your husband and destroyed a good man. Very personal, very emotional, not at all like a concerned citizen reporting workplace violations. That night, I called Attorney Washington and filled her in on the latest development. Mrs. Jenkins, this is exactly what we needed. We can now establish a pattern of harassment using information only your ex-husband would know. I'm filing for a restraining order tomorrow. What does that mean for him? It means he can't contact you directly, can't come to your home or workplace, can't make any more of these anonymous complaints. If he violates it, he goes to jail. And the children? Supervised visitation continues, but now with the added protection that he can't use the children to get messages to you or gather information about your life. The restraining order was granted 2 weeks later. The judge reviewed the evidence, the recorded conversation showing his intoxication, the pattern of anonymous complaints that stopped being anonymous, The escalation from property disputes to attempts to damage my employment and reputation.
Mr. Johnson, the judge said sternly, this court finds that you have engaged in a systematic campaign of harassment against your ex-wife. You are hereby ordered to maintain no contact with Miss Jenkins except through your respective attorneys or court-approved visitation supervisors. Tyrone's lawyer tried to argue that this was excessive, that his client was just frustrated with the divorce settlement, but the evidence was overwhelming. Your Honor, Attorney Washington responded, Mr. Johnson's frustration has manifested in attempts to have his ex-wife fired, investigated by the IRS, and reported for child neglect. This isn't the behavior of a frustrated ex-spouse. This is the behavior of someone who refuses to accept the consequences of his own actions. The judge agreed. Mr. Johnson, you seem to be under the impression that your ex-wife wronged you by ending a marriage you were already destroying through infidelity. The court finds no evidence that Miss Jenkins acted improperly in protecting her assets or her children. You would be well served to focus on rebuilding your own life rather than attempting to tear down hers. As we left the courthouse, I felt lighter than I had in months. Finally, legal protection from the man who'd been trying to punish me for having the strength to walk away. But the real satisfaction came 3 months later, in March 2017, when I learned what had happened to Tyrone and Bernice. I was at the grocery store when I ran into Shayla, who was practically bursting with gossip. Girl, have you heard about Tyrone and that woman? I try not to keep up with Tyrone's drama. Well, this drama is too good not to share. Bernice kicked him out. Again? Apparently, she took him back after the whole hospital incident, felt sorry for him, thought maybe they could work it through. But honey, Tyrone Johnson is Tyrone Johnson. What happened? Same thing that happened with you. She was supporting him, he wasn't working consistently, he was taking her money and her generosity for granted. But the last straw was when she found out he'd been using her money to pay for the lawyer to harass you. I stopped pushing my cart. She was funding the harassment? Not intentionally. She was giving him money thinking it was for rent and food and getting back on his feet. Come to find out, he was spending it on legal fees to try to make your life miserable. When she figured out what was going on, she threw him out and told him never to contact her again. The irony was delicious. Bernice had been unknowingly funding Tyrone's campaign against me, and when she discovered it, she'd done exactly what I'd done. Cut him off, completely. Where's he staying now? Back with his mama. Miss Dorothy told my aunt that she's ashamed and disappointed in how her son has been acting. Made him get a full-time job and start paying rent if he wants to stay there. So Tyrone, who thought he was too good for steady employment when he was married to me, was now working full-time just to pay rent to his own mother. And get this, Shayla continued, Bernice filed her own restraining order against him. Apparently, he didn't take the breakup well and started showing up at her job, calling her at all hours, basically doing to her what he was doing to you. The pattern was clear. Tyrone couldn't handle rejection, couldn't accept responsibility, couldn't move on when women got tired of his nonsense. The same behavior that had destroyed our marriage was now destroying every relationship he tried to build. So now he can't contact you, can't contact her, and can only see his kids with supervision, Shayla said with satisfaction. Karma is beautiful, isn't it? It really was. But the most beautiful part of karma came 6 months later, when I got a call that changed everything. Miss Jenkins, this is Robert Martinez from Memphis Business Development. We've been following your catering company and we'd like to discuss a business opportunity with you. I was intrigued. Memphis Business Development worked with small businesses to help them grow and expand. What kind of opportunity?
We have a client who owns several office buildings downtown. They're looking for an exclusive catering service to handle all their corporate events, business lunches, client meetings. It would be a substantial contract. My heart started racing. An exclusive contract with multiple office buildings could be the break that took my little catering business to the next level. What would be involved? Consistent daily lunch service for their executive dining room, plus catering for special events. We're talking about a contract worth approximately $200,000 annually. $200,000. More than I'd ever made in a year, even with my day job and catering combined. Why me? Your reputation is excellent, your food is outstanding, and frankly, we're impressed with your business acumen. You've built this company from nothing while working full-time and raising 3 children. That's the kind of entrepreneur we want to support. 3 weeks later, I signed the contract. Not only was it financially transformative, but it came with benefits I hadn't expected. A commercial kitchen space, help with equipment purchases, even marketing support. For the first time in my life, I was truly financially independent. Not just getting by, not just supporting my family, but actually building wealth. I gave my notice at the medical billing company, hired 2 assistants for the catering business, and moved into my own commercial space. Within 6 months, I'd tripled my income and established myself as one of the premier catering services in Memphis. The children were thriving too. Malik was excelling in school and talking about wanting to study business like his mama. Jasmine had discovered a love for cooking and often helped me prep for events on weekends. Little Tyrone Jr. was happy, confident, and secure in the knowledge that his mama could handle anything. And me? I was becoming the woman I'd always had the potential to be, but had never had the space to become while I was busy propping up a man who didn't appreciate it. One evening in November 2017, almost 2 years after the hospital incident, I got an unexpected visitor. Tyrone was standing outside my commercial kitchen, looking older and more tired than I'd ever seen him. "Paulina, I know I'm not supposed to be here, but I really need to talk to you." "Tyrone, you have a restraining order. You can't be here."
Please, just 5 minutes. I'll leave if you ask me to, but I need to say some things. Against my better judgment, I stepped outside but kept my phone ready to call the police if needed. "What do you want?" "I want to apologize. Really apologize. Not just for what happened between us, but for everything I did after. The harassment, the complaints, trying to mess with your job and your reputation, all of it." I studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation or self-pity, but what I saw was genuine remorse. Why now? Because I've been in counseling, court-ordered at first, but I kept going because I realized I needed help. And I've finally started to understand what I did to you, to our family, to myself. And what was that? I was a coward. I was too proud to admit that I wasn't good enough for you, so instead of working to become better, I tore you down to make myself feel bigger. I was too selfish to appreciate what I had, so I threw it away for something that made me feel important. He was quiet for a moment, looking at the successful business I'd built, the life I'd created for myself. "You were always too good for me, Paulina. Your parents knew it, my parents knew it, probably you knew it. But instead of trying to rise to your level, I resented you for being everything I wasn't. Why are you telling me this?" "Because I heard about your business, about how well you're doing, about how happy the kids are. And I realized that everything you achieved, you did in spite of me, not because of me. I was holding you back for years, and I was too selfish to see it. Tyrone, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for another chance. I'm not asking for anything. I just needed you to know that I finally understand what I lost, and it wasn't because you took it from me. It was because I threw it away." He turned to leave, then stopped. The kids talk about you all the time during our visits, how proud they are of you, how hard you work, how much you've accomplished. They should be proud. You're an amazing mother and an incredible woman, and I was too stupid to see it when it mattered. Tyrone? Yeah? Thank you for saying that, and for what it's worth, I hope you find your way to being the man you're capable of being. I'm trying. It's harder than I thought it would be, starting over at 35 with nothing, but I'm trying. After he left, I sat in my car for a long time, processing what had just happened. For years, I'd wanted him to acknowledge what he'd done, to take responsibility, to see me as the valuable partner I'd tried to be. Now that I finally had that acknowledgement, I realized I didn't need it anymore. I'd already proven my worth to myself and built a life that reflected my true value. The apology was nice, but it didn't change anything. I was already whole, already successful, already happy. That Christmas was the best one we'd had in years. I was able to buy the children everything they wanted and take them on a vacation to Disney World. We stayed in a nice resort, ate at fancy restaurants, and made memories that had nothing to do with financial stress or family drama. "Mama," Jasmine said as we watched fireworks over Cinderella's castle, "are you happy?" "I'm happier than I've ever been, baby girl." "Without Daddy?" "Especially without Daddy. Sometimes people have to leave our lives for us to become who we're meant to be." "Are you going to marry Mr. Michael?" Michael and I had been dating for over a year now, and it was getting serious. He was everything Tyrone wasn't: reliable, supportive, genuinely proud of my success instead of threatened by it. "I don't know yet, but if I do, it'll be because he adds something good to our life, not because we need him." "Good," Malik said, "because we're pretty awesome, just the four of us." We really are. The following spring, I got a call from Attorney Washington with news that brought the whole saga full circle. "Miss Jenkins, I thought you'd want to know that your ex-husband has petitioned the court to modify the custody arrangement." "He wants more time with the kids?" "Actually, no. He wants to reduce his visitation to once a month and eliminate the Wednesday evening visits." "Why?" "According to his petition, he's accepted a job in Nashville and will be moving there within the next few months." Nashville, 2 hours away. Far enough that regular visits would be difficult, but close enough that he could still be in the children's lives if he made the effort. "What kind of job?" "Construction supervisor for a large company. Apparently, his counseling and work history over the past year impressed them enough to offer him a management position." I had to give him credit for that. It sounded like he was finally taking responsibility for his life and making positive changes. "How do the kids feel about it?" "That's between you and them. But Miss Jenkins, I want you to know that this essentially ends any ongoing legal issues between you and your ex-husband. Once he moves and the custody arrangement is modified, you'll have full practical custody with minimal court-ordered visitation." Which meant I'd finally have the peace and stability I'd been working toward for 3 years. That evening, I sat down with the children to discuss their father's plans. "How do you feel about Daddy moving to Nashville?" I asked. "Will we still see him?" Little Tyrone Jr. asked. "If you want to, he'll still be your father, and he'll still have weekends with you, just not as often." "I don't really care," Malik said, and his matter-of-fact tone surprised me. "He's been gone so much anyway, it won't feel that different." "I hope he's happy there," Jasmine added. "Maybe he'll be nicer when he's not sad all the time." Out of the mouths of babes. Even at 8 years old, Jasmine had recognized that Tyrone's behavior came from his own unhappiness. "Are you okay with this, Mama?" Malik asked. "I'm fine with it. I want your father to have a good life, and if moving to Nashville helps him do that,
then I support it. Even after everything he did, especially after everything he did. The best revenge isn't making someone miserable. It's building such a good life that their opinion doesn't matter anymore. 3 months later, Tyrone moved to Nashville. The kids visited him once, came back with reports that he had a nice apartment and seemed less grumpy. After that, the visits became sporadic. Sometimes he'd drive down to see them, sometimes they'd go up there, sometimes months would go by with just phone calls. But you know what? The kids were fine with it. They had a stable home, a present parent, and a life full of love and opportunity. They didn't need more than that. And I was more than fine. I was triumphant. By the end of 2018, my catering business had grown to the point where I was employing 12 people and considering opening a restaurant. I'd paid off my house early, started college funds for all 3 children, and was building the kind of generational wealth that would give them opportunities I'd never had. Michael had proposed that spring, and I'd said yes. Not because I needed a husband, but because I wanted a partner. Someone who celebrated my success instead of being threatened by it. Someone who loved my children as if they were his own. Someone who understood that he was joining our family, not rescuing us. The wedding was small and perfect. My children, my parents, close friends, and a man who'd proven himself worthy of our love through patience, consistency, and genuine respect. But the most satisfying moment came during the reception, when Miss Dorothy pulled me aside. "Paulina, I want you to know how proud I am of you." "Thank you, Miss Dorothy. And I want you to know that I tell everyone, anyone who will listen, what a fool my son was to let you go. You don't have to do that." "Yes, I do. Because for too long, I let him paint you as the villain in his story. But you were never the villain. You were the woman who loved him enough to carry his weight until you loved yourself enough to put it down." That night, as I danced with my new husband, while my children laughed and played with their new step-siblings from Michael's previous marriage, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. From the naive young woman who thought love could fix anything, to the desperate wife trying to hold together a marriage that was already broken, to the woman who'd finally found the courage to demand better. I'd lost a husband who didn't deserve me and gained a life that exceeded my wildest dreams. I'd gone from making excuses for a man's failures to celebrating my own success. I transformed from a woman who protected everyone else's feelings to a woman who protected her own worth. And the sweet revenge, it wasn't the glue incident, as satisfying as that had been. It wasn't the divorce settlement or the restraining order or even Tyrone's eventual move to Nashville. The sweetest revenge was living so well that the man who tried to break me down became irrelevant to my happiness. The sweetest revenge was building something so beautiful that his absence made it better, not worse. The sweetest revenge was raising my children to know their worth, to expect respect, to never settle for less than they deserve. The sweetest revenge was becoming the woman I was always meant to be once I stopped making myself smaller to accommodate someone else's insecurities. 5 years after the hospital incident, I ran into Bernice at a business networking event. She was there representing the law firm where she worked, and I was there promoting my catering company. We looked at each other across the room for a moment, then she walked over. "Paulina, I thought that was you." "Hello, Bernice." I I owe you an apology, a real one. Not just for the affair, but for not listening when you tried to warn me about who he really was. You don't owe me anything. Yes, I do. Because after everything that happened, after he showed his true colors, I realized that you tried to save me from making the same mistakes you made. And I was too proud and too foolish to listen. We talked for a few minutes and I learned that Bernice had gotten therapy, changed jobs, and was in a healthy relationship with a man who respected her independence. I heard about your business and your new marriage. I'm happy for you. Thank you. Can I ask you something? How did you do it? How did you rebuild your life so completely after everything he put you through? I stopped waiting for him to become the man I needed and started becoming the woman I was meant to be. That's it. That's everything. Once I stopped focusing on fixing him and started focusing on building myself, everything else fell into place. She nodded, understanding dawning in her eyes. I wish I'd learned that lesson sooner. You learned it when you were ready to learn it. That's all any of us can do. As I drove home that night, I thought about the woman I'd been when this story started. Exhausted, taken for granted, carrying the weight of a marriage that was slowly suffocating her. And I thought about the woman I'd become, successful, respected, loved by a man who deserved her, and raising children who would never accept being treated as less than they were worth. The moral is this. You are not responsible for loving someone into being better. You're not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. You are not required to sacrifice your dreams to enable someone else's laziness. The moral is that sometimes the most radical thing a woman can do is refuse to accept less than she deserves. The moral is that the best revenge isn't destruction, it's construction. Building something so beautiful, so strong, so undeniably yours that the person who tried to tear you down becomes nothing more than a cautionary tale you tell to warn other women. My name is Pollyanna Jenkins Coleman now, and I run one of the most successful catering companies in Memphis. I own my home outright. I'm building generational wealth for my children. And I'm married to a man who thinks my success is the sexiest thing about me. My ex-husband lives in Nashville, works for someone else, and sees his children once a month if he remembers to make the effort. And honey, if that's not poetic justice, I don't know what is. But the real victory isn't what happened to him. The real victory is what happened to me. I stopped being a woman who happened to other people and became a woman who happened to the world. I stopped being someone's supporting character and became the protagonist of my own story. And that story, it's just getting started. Because when you finally understand your worth, when you finally demand the respect you deserve, when you finally refuse to accept anything less than what you've earned, that's when your real life begins. That's when you discover that the woman you were protecting him from becoming was exactly the woman you needed to be all along. Strong, independent, uncompromising in your standards, unwilling to settle for anything less than extraordinary. Some people might call that difficult. I call it knowing your worth. Some people might call that selfish. I call it self-respect. Some people might call that too much. I call it exactly enough. And the man who's right for you, he'll call it the most attractive thing about you. Because, honey, the right man doesn't want you to be less so he can feel like more. The right man wants you to be everything you're capable of being because your success reflects well on his judgment, not poorly on his adequacy. The right man sees your strength as an asset, not a threat. Your independence as a gift, not a burden. Your success as something to celebrate, not something to compete with. The right man understands that he's not there to complete you. You were already complete. He's there to complement you, to add to your life without subtracting from your dreams. And until that man comes along, you build a life so good that you're not willing to let anyone disturb your peace unless they're adding significant value to it. You raise your standards so high that settling becomes impossible. You love yourself so thoroughly that accepting less than you deserve becomes unthinkable. That's the real revenge, y'all. Not the glue, not the divorce, not the public humiliation. Though all of that was satisfying in its own way, the real revenge is becoming so phenomenally successful, so genuinely happy, so completely fulfilled that the person who tried to dim your light becomes irrelevant to your shine. The real revenge is living proof that they didn't break you. They just revealed what you were made of. And honey, you were made of much stronger stuff than either of you realized. The end? Oh no, baby. This isn't the end. This is just the beginning of the woman I was always meant to be. And she is magnificent. Now, ladies, what would you have done in my situation? Drop your thoughts and let me know. Are you Team Paulina or Team Give Him Another Chance? Defend your choice in the comments. Do you think he was supposed to be welcomed back into my life? And also comment your favorite Paulina moment. There were so many powerful ones. Which moment did you enjoy the most in my story? This story is too good to keep to yourself. Your family and friends deserves this inspiration. What are you waiting for? Share it and watch them thank you. I post stories that'll have you glued to your screen daily, but some of y'all won't subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. And subscribing without the notification bell is like having a phone on silent. You won't know when I call. I post stories daily. Subscribe and turn all notifications on. Stop missing the daily tea. Okay, let's meet in the comments. Bye.